And welcome into the Week 9 trade show of the Fantasy 4-Pack. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale, Frankie Santiago. We are bringing you guys some more trade for and trade away candidates this week, as well as our starts of the week and money picks. Before we get into all of that, though, I'm going to show off not a beer this week, it's a cider that we picked for the show. It's from the...
You picked this one.
Yes, I did. I like this one a lot. It's from Down East. This is their blueberry cider. I think it's excellent. I will say it is very blueberry-y.
As a blueberry cider tends to be.
Yes, but if you are not a fan of blueberry, you will not like this because this isn't something like brewed with blueberries. You can't really taste the blueberries. It's this tastes like someone strained blueberries into a cup and put some alcoholic cider in there and kind of stirred it around. It's very, very blueberry.
I enjoy blueberries very much.
Yes, it's great. I think it's awesome. But Vitale, you're usually the resident dissenter on our beer picks. What do you think about this?
As the non-IPA guy, I will give this one a.
This is an IPA.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm the non-IPA guy. I will give my pass on this one. This is fine. It's a little bit sweet, so if you're not looking for something too sweet, because there's some people shy away from those drinks because they kind of, make your stomach hurt if you drink too many and stuff like that. I can drink a couple of these, but this is more this is like at a bar beer. I'm look at the cider, it's the right time of year.
Speaking from experience, if you drink a case of these at, we'll call it a Friendsgiving, you will get a headache in the morning.
I can imagine. Fruit is known for being sugary, so that checks out.
Yes.
Light news day today. Stafford has COVID, or not has COVID. He's on the COVID list. He was exposed to people who have COVID. They're testing him to see if he has it. He's not officially ruled out for their game this week, but something to keep an eye on. If Stafford's out and Galladay's out, that team goes to being kind of trash. I think I'd be if I have to find a bright spot in that. I think I'd be excited if I'm a Swift or Peterson manager, because you have to assume, if Stafford and Galladay are out, they're going to lean on the running game even more than they already have. But obviously, if Stafford's out, you don't start any pass catchers. Maybe Marvin Jones if you're in a pinch. But the 49ers just have COVID. It's faster to say the 49ers have COVID than list the players that have tested positive for it. So far, it doesn't sound like their game is going to be in doubt, though. So definitely something to keep an eye on. But I feel like we would have heard something at this point if their game was going to be skipped. Myles Gaskin has a bit of an injury. It's going to be sidelining him for a bit. And while I was perusing through the fantasy waiver wire, seeing what was out there, it appears Matt Breida is also hurt and uncertain to go this week. So maybe we finally see Jordan Howard this week. I'm not happy either way because Howard's been a healthy scratch, so that tells you what they think of Howard so far this season. And Matt Breida is good for 7 to 9 carries a game if he's healthy. So, and this offense looked terrible with Tua under center last week. So, I'm not plugging any of these guys in my lineup unless it's fantasy Armageddon on my team. Are you guys in that same boat?
I think the Arizona game has a little bit more potential to be a shootout than the Rams game. So you know what? Maybe it's Tua time. I mean, I'm forced to roll out Gesicki at this point. So
he threw for 98 yards last week.
Yeah, the defense also put up 3 touchdowns. He didn't need to throw for more than that.
Yeah, Arizona's exploitable. This is going to be I'm trying to find any way to not start a Dolphin if I can, and this is a watch game. I want to watch this game closely. I want to see what Tua looks like in a full game, where the offense on the other side should be good enough to produce against the Dolphins. So how does he look when he needs to come back against Kyler? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, last week, Myles Gaskin got 18 carries to the tune of 2.6 yards per carry and just salvaged his day with a touchdown. So, and, through the air, their leading receiver was also Myles Gaskin who had 3 catches for 16 yards. Like, I'm out on everyone in this matchup. I'm sitting them all, and same boat as you. It's like, prove it to me, and then you get to go back into my lineup. And then depending on your feelings on the player, better news. Antonio Brown's officially been activated and is expected to play this weekend. Bruce Arians has not said how many snaps they plan on giving Antonio Brown. I believe, I'm paraphrasing here, but it could be 10, could be 35. We don't think it'll be 60, but we'll see. So that's Bruce Arians telling you, screw off, I'm not telling you my game plan. We're going to use AB how we want to use AB. But if you look in between read in between the lines there, Chris Godwin probably isn't playing this week. Scotty Miller's banged up. Mike Evans is terrible. I would honestly feel comfortable starting AB this week if I needed a wide receiver 3 or a flex start.
Yeah, he's an amazingly talented receiver, just with off the field issues. So him with Brady, who's a guy he showed a very quick connection with.
Yeah.
Brady is all about his inner circle, and I could see him coming right into it. I think the big thing I'm loving for this matchup is Gronk. He's been continuing to roll, and with more injuries coming to this team, and AB there to maybe draw some coverage, I could see Gronk having another good day.
Well, and people have been saying too that it's like you worry about the physique of players who've been out of football, but people have been saying that Antonio Brown is in fantastic shape. So,
yeah, kind of reminds me of what we saw with Josh Gordon when he came back. I mean,
some guys are just freaks of nature. They're just they never get out of shape.
again, if he goes there and they mesh as well as they did in New England for those couple of games, I mean, this is my favorite to come out of the NFC at this point.
I don't know about that, but they're up there. I think that if Antonio Brown makes sweet fantasy music this week, he instantly becomes he's not on any of our list, but he instantly becomes a sell high for me if he pops off this week.
Yeah.
Try and capitalize on that before that wide receiver core gets murkier when Godwin comes back.
Or if he has any more off the field issues.
Yes, or that. You never know when he's going to not pay some cleaning staff or punch a delivery driver or something. All right, let's get into the trade show here. Who wants to take it away? Frank, you let us off last week, I believe. Vitaly, do you want to start us this time?
Sure. All right. So for mine, there's a little bit of a theme with my trade, guys. In that strength of schedule is king here, especially as we're rolling towards the playoffs. There's a lot of guys out there who have been performing above or below what they should be doing, or you have some sexy names like a Michael Thomas out there, whether you want to try and buy in on him, Chubb, and all those guys. But I feel like those are a little too obvious, and owners should be sharp enough where they know to, sell them appropriately. I think the big thing for a championship run is getting yourself a solid floor and a strength of schedule where a guy can not only keep that floor for you, but can pop in these games and take over a matchup. That's why my trade for target this week is Allen Robinson.
I like it.
He has a wonderful rest of schedule. He still does have his bye. Big disclaimer out there, because if you need wins, that might disqualify him.
That's honestly the big reason why I didn't list him as a trade for target for me, because I think that you can wait to try and trade for him while he's on his bye to get him at his lowest price.
That is true. He does get Tennessee and then Minnesota, so that Minnesota game might be a little bit of a pop game for him, which might inflate his value. I like going for him right now. He hasn't really had amazing games in his past 3. Only 53 yards, 70 yards, 87, and a touchdown. So not looking great, but then again, he's playing against Carolina, the Rams, and New Orleans, which are solid defenses, not so much Carolina. But, I mean, when you look down the stretch, though, for his last 2 games of the regular season, he's got Green Bay and Detroit, which easily should be able to be a gun show for him to just go out there and get peppered with targets as he normally does. But then for the playoffs, he hits Houston, Minnesota again, Jacksonville. I love that. I love that schedule for him. I feel like there's no reason why he shouldn't feast in all of those games. And we know he's a target machine, so especially in half-point and PPR leagues, that's just even more value. And I don't see a reason why he can't get back to his, 9 to, middle teens target ratio. Because we saw without him, they're kind of just going wherever. Darnell Mooney showing out, but I don't think he's good enough to hold down that wide receiver core. They need AR back.
No, I mean, Darnell Mooney is more like a Chase Claypool, where it's like he's going to provide value as the second guy. When they take shots down the field to him, or they catch him in blown coverage or something, and he turns in a big play.
Yeah, like I said, that's just the big thing for me. And the strength schedule is mainly what I'm looking at right now. I'm trying to get rid of people with terrible ones, like the Jags have a pretty rough end of season schedule, so I'm trying to move them. But for my trade away, I'm going with a guy who has some name value and has been producing. I'm going with Todd Gurley.
Sure.
Once again, so another one. He still has his bye, week 10. So if you can sell him this week while he's still got a game, maybe the manager's not paying attention or is not as worried about the bye, because we know when a bye hits, that price of that player goes into the dumpster.
Typically, yes.
So Gurley has been scoring at an amazing rate, which we know that Gurley can do. That's kind of been his MO since he's popped in this league. But
like a better Trent Richardson.
Yeah. But with him, there's just so many great options on this team that should be able to take those touchdowns away from him when Calvin Ridley gets healthy after the bye. Julio Jones, when him and Matt Ryan are clicking. Hurst is still a factor. There's still other guys all over this offense that can produce for this team where they don't need Gurley. And it's just the amazing amount of touchdowns he's putting out there. I have to see regression. And on top of that, so from 13 to championship weekend, which should be 16, he gets New Orleans,
gross,
the Chargers,
gross,
Tampa Bay,
gross,
Kansas City. Could be okay.
Chargers and Kansas City are like middle of the road, but
right?
Tampa Bay and New Orleans,
but they're still respectable. Like,
don't forget, he gets New Orleans straight out of the bye too at New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. He literally comes out of the bye. New Orleans, Vegas, New Orleans. Like that. Like, if you're fighting for a playoff spot, he could cost you that playoff spot because he could give you 2 duds in 2 critical weeks. So sell him now while he's going against Denver, which should be a solid matchup for him. Like, I'm not too scared. Like, they're at home against Denver, so it's not as bad, but.
Honestly, I would try and sell him, if you're going to move on from Todd Gurley, I'd try and sell him before this week, because Denver has been steadily improving as a defense. They're better than their metrics show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, this could be the beginning of the end of Todd Gurley having actual trade value for you, if you try and squeeze one more week out of them and then sell him, because he could have look at his games. He's not scoring unless he's getting in the end zone typically. So he could have a bad game going into a bye, and all of a sudden you're basically giving him away if you want to get rid of him.
Yeah, and on top of that, like I said, his last 3 games, he scored 3 touchdowns between those games. But when you look at his yardage on the ground, his yards per carry, 2.4, 2.7, 2.6. That is less than what I would consider pedestrian. That is abysmal.
Honestly, if I was a Gurley manager, I would try and flip him for an underperforming stud with either a good rest of season schedule or someone who is like historically a top 3 guy. I'd try and see if the Zeke owner wants to bite on him and flip him there, because Zeke's been trash. Or I'd try and see if I can flip him for Jonathan Taylor, who has a very even though he has been it turns out it's because of his ankle, but he's been underperforming. He's a very nice rest of season. Mm-hmm. I'd try and flip him for someone like that, maybe a Josh Jacobs, or see if the Miles Sanders manager wants to bite on him while Miles Sanders on his bye. Try and get a guy like that for him, because you might be able to with how Gurley's been getting in the end zone, and he is still Todd Gurley to some people. Yeah, Frank, any thoughts on that?
No, I pretty much agree with what you guys just said. I mean, if we want to jump to me, my takeaway is pretty much the same.
I was going to kick it to you next, given that Zeke was mentioned.
Yeah, I am going to start on the reverse with this, with my trade away being Zeke, for pretty much most of the same reasons. The Cowboys offense, and honestly, generally, the NFC as a whole, look kind of pathetic. No one out there is really producing at this point. In Dallas or the NFC East. Mm-hmm. Zeke still managed to hold on to that 4 slot, so if you're looking to trade him away, he's got that sexy number 4 next to him. That's in PPR, by the way. But I think that's mostly off the back of his first 5 games, where he scored double-digit points, and I think he had a touchdown in pretty much every one. Over the last 3 weeks, again, PPR, 12 points, 6.1, 8.3. No touchdowns. I think that the time to sell him might even be gone, because it looks like his value is just plummeting.
I don't know if it's ever really gone for a guy like Zeke.
Well, also, Zeke. Again, he still has that number 4, and he is still Zeke. So the name has more weight than anything at this point.
And another thing to add to like why you might want to move him, the Cowboys are considering moving away from Ben DiNucci towards a practice squad guy. I don't even know his name.
Yeah, and again to piggyback off Vitalian, strength of the schedule for the rest of the season: Pittsburgh, into a bye, Minnesota, Washington, Baltimore, Cincinnati. This is the one lone thing in there. San Fran, Philly. So that's, for the viewers counting at home, that's 5 top 7 run defenses against the running back.
Yeah, that Washington front seven's been like you think, oh, Washington good, like they've been nasty. They've been quietly developing into a really good defensive unit.
Yeah, at this point, the Cowboys looking like they're getting on planes to kick field goals. So if I really don't want any part of this offense, and the wide receivers are already plummeted. Your time to trade them is gone. You should have traded them 2 weeks ago. Zeke, you might get this week, and that's it.
Well, I would say, honestly, looking at Zeke's schedule, you probably have to hold him through his bye because people are going to pull him up. They're going to see the big red pit next to his name and be like, no, thank you. Minnesota isn't a tough defense. Zeke could find some running room against them, even with a bad quarterback under center. They might have Dalton back by week 11 because he did clear concussion protocol this week. He's now potentially on the COVID list. Well, they could have Dalton back by week 11, which should be a bump for him, and then Minnesota could be, a nice little salve for his value. I think Zeke is still Zeke. I think it's just the Cowboys team is failing. But like if he has say he puts up like 100 and a touchdown, maybe 30 through the air against Minnesota, you could tell people on like, oh look, Zeke's back. See, it just took a little bit for the Andy Dalton offense to click. It's clicking now. Zeke's in full gear, and that's when you try and trade him for like a James Conner.
Yeah, honestly, I'm surprised. I'm very interested to see how low Zeke's value can get for somebody who was like, for me, he was my consensus number 1. Just because of how safe he's been in years past. Obviously, when you're going with practice squad quarterbacks and guys who I don't know their name, and when Andy Dalton is the shining quarterback on your team, you're like, oh, when he gets back, that's when he'll get back to normal. Like, that's when you know your team's in dire straits. Like, honestly, Zeke for me is, yes, I agree, sell him. If you are not in a position, if you're not already clinching a, playoff berth, sell him, get yourself, sell his name, get something on your team to help you get wins, get rid of that bye off your schedule, go for a team that's already passed their bye, maybe someone's a Dallas homer in your league that would love to have Zeke. So, with that caveat though, when the bye hits, if I am a team that has a championship berth already, I'm trying to buy Zeke, because I might be able to get him as a very cheap running back 3, who has the ceiling of Zeke. And like I said, there's some bad matchups in there, but if I don't care about 11, 12, 13, and I'm looking at 14, 15, 16, I'm really only scared about San Fran. San Fran's been falling apart. Like, who knows what we're going to have left on that team when week 15 hits. Like, Zeke could be a very sneaky winner for a lot of teams if you can snake him off of a team that needs points now.
I don't disagree. I will say, I don't know if you can get him as a cheap wide receiver 3, but I just pulled up.
I meant like cheap running back 3. Sorry,
running back 3. I misspoke there. You said running back 3, but I was just pulling up the Fantasy Pros running back ECR. Mm-hmm. Industry wide, and I am a little bit lower than this, but industry wide, Zeke is considered the 12th running back or rest of season at this point. Mm-hmm. I have him down at 16. But it's like that's the direction that analysts are moving him in, and another bad game against Pittsburgh this week. You could see him sink down towards the bottom half of that RB2, and you might be able to get him. If you have a Zeke manager who's panicking or frustrated, you might be able to get him for a David Montgomery or a David Johnson or a Todd Gurley. One of these guys who they're kind of lame, but at least they've been performing.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind too, like the info that you just pulled up, people have access to this. Like, they can see where the trend is going. Like, if people might just look at that and be like, oh yeah, like he's going to shit, like I need to get rid of him, and then you can get him in there for sneaky without them. Like if they're not actually looking at the actual numbers and like the ceiling of Zeke, you can probably get him, maybe not super cheap, but definitely cheaper than you're getting him.
The other reason why I do agree with Vitale that you want to try and target him, post bye, is because he's going to have a bad time this week. Pittsburgh makes everyone have a bad time, and then it's his bye week. The Dallas offensive line did get beat up earlier in the year. They're getting healthier. They're projected to have if everything goes to plan and no surprise injuries crop up, they're supposed to have a more complete offensive line post bye than they currently have. They have some guys coming back that are going to be getting healthier, which in turn is going to make it easier to be Zeke. It doesn't matter if you're Barry Sanders reincarnated or you somehow time jumped and pulled a young Adrian Peterson into the league. No one can run against a stacked box. So if Zeke gets a healthier line, he gets Andy Dalton back, who is objectively an upgrade over Ben DiNucci, I do think that he could be an interesting buy low for week 11 on. Frankie, who's your buy high or your buy low? Who's your buy high, Frankie?
Well, I think you should just buy this guy in general. He's kind of in the same realm as Allen Robinson. If I have to compare the two, they're very comparable high-volume receivers. Currently, the wide receiver 14 in PPR. Keenan Allen. So he's just outside of that wide receiver 1 range. However, he is 4th in targets with 74 and 5th in receptions. So he is catching these targets.
Sounds like Keenan Allen.
The main detractor, which I would imagine for most people, is he only has 3 touchdowns. I mean, looking at Keenan Allen over the years, I don't see a problem with that because he's historically never been the touchdown guy. He's always been the volume guy. His career high is 8 in a season.
Yeah.
He's averaging 119 targets a season through his career. So, I mean, if you keep him on pace, I mean, he's going to get more than that this year. As long as, I mean, Herbert's looked really good out there, so I don't see a reason why he can't. I think that touchdown regression is going to come, especially with, let's look ahead to his schedule. Miami, the Jets, Buffalo, New England's like the one scary one in there, Atlanta, Las Vegas, Denver. I mean, those all sound like, for the most part, plus matchups to me.
So those are generally matchups that you can make some hay in as a wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why. I mean, especially given that he is in that wide receiver 2 range right now. I mean, if you can even just do a 1-for-1 swap or something similar, where maybe you just throw 2 pieces at him. I mean, I've really been high on, particularly AR-15 over the years, or AR-12, whatever his number is.
Mm-hmm.
But Keenan Allen's always been like that kind of second guy to me in that same kind of realm where he doesn't have to rely on those touchdowns, because a lot of wide receivers in this league do. You pretty much know what you're going to get with him.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love him. He's just, I think the only downside for him is he might be a little expensive just because of how that offenses look under Herbert. But no, I love me some Keenan Allen. He's a guy that I was expecting to do good things this year, and I wasn't expecting this much. But
I definitely wouldn't call him a buy low. But I don't think that he necessarily has to be. I think if you are getting, you'll have to pay market value for Keenan Allen, but you're getting what you pay for with him.
Yeah.
So he's definitely a good guy to target, especially if he's on maybe he's on a team where they're hurting otherwise, and you can set a package to get him to give them more strength and let you condense some points.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, that's the big thing with trading. Don't just look at it as grab this guy, grab that guy, sell this guy, sell that guy. It's all situation. Where is your team at? Where is their team at? Do you have a logical way to connect your teams to make it at least look like you're both coming out on top, so they feel comfortable with the trade, you feel comfortable with the trade, you're getting something like.
And I've said before, the ideal trade is when both teams win.
Right. Yeah. So like Keenan Allen's a guy you're gonna have to pay for, but if you think like how good his schedule is, he's a guy that it's fine to pay for him. You pay his fair price because he could go off and either put you in the playoffs or send you for a deep run.
Yeah,
that's where we're engaged. We should be right now. That's where your brain should be at. If you can put yourself in playoff mode. Put yourself in playoff mode as soon as possible. Trade for the hurt guys. Trade for the guys with great schedules. Start sending away the guys who have flashy value, which you think is going to dip off.
Yeah.
That's
Actually, speaking of that, Frankie, you seeing as Zeke is a sell for you. Speaking of hurt guys, right now would you trade? Because this could be something a Zeke manager could make if they manage to make the playoffs regardless of Zeke. Would you be looking to move Zeke for say Austin Eckler or Nick Chubb, guys who are expect to be back for the playoffs? They have obviously a lot of talent and nice schedules, but currently aren't doing anything for managers.
Nick Chubb is a toss for me. I haven't looked into him too much as someone who does have shares of Eckler. Yes, just because his schedule looks really good, and again, just to the Keenan Allen thing, it's just their schedule as a whole is really easy.
Sure.
Yeah, for me, honestly, I would probably be going for Chubb just because that owner might be getting a little skittish with how good Kareem's looked. I mean, like I said, he hasn't really exploded to the point that we thought he might get to with this free backfield, basically. So I think that they clearly have a need for Chubb, so I'm not too worried about him coming back with a diminished role. I think we're going to see early season Chubb. So if I can get him off an owner and be like, hey, you're missing a guy, I'll take the basically extra bye weeks of him. You have to take one bye week of Zeke. Let's just make this a swap.
Yeah. All right, let me get into my two here, and then we'll get to our starts and money picks. Speaking of injured players, my trade for is a freshly injured player. Mr. Kenneth Golladay is out this week with a hip. He has an uncertain timetable moving forward. And speaking as someone who has several shares of Kenny over his leagues, because I was a big Kenny believer going into the season, I am very much willing to move him. Speaking from personal experience, I am willing to move him for less than market value right now. Because in leagues where I'm struggling, I'm trying to buy a win right now, Kenny's not doing anything for me. And you know what? He has a nice little playoff schedule. He gets home versus Green Bay and then at Tennessee. Rough matchup against Tampa Bay in Week 16. But I'll take nice games in 14 and 15 and then just hope that talent wins out in 16. But that's not any consolation to me if I miss the playoffs waiting for him to get back into playing shape. While his hip heals up. So I'm in a boat right now where I'm willing to move Kenny low, even though I know I'm not getting market value for him because I'm looking to get playable pieces. Managers that are in the shoes of someone who's 5-3, 6-2, 7-1. He's a guy that would be great to target if you're looking to set yourself up for a nice little playoff run and you have the pieces to go after him. See if you can pick up Kenny Golladay for a Justin Jefferson or a T. Higgins, or like a Jarvis Landry or someone who a good receiver, but not Kenny good. See if you can pick him up for like a 1-for-1 that makes their team better in the short term, but puts you in a position to win a championship. Because if you drafted Kenny, you used a high pick on him, and he hasn't played a lot this season. So chances are, if you drafted Kenny, you're kind of up a creek without a paddle. You're probably not in a position where you can really afford to sit out his injury. He's someone who I'm smashing that trade button for. I'm trying to figure out a way to get him on my team if I'm a winning squad. And then my trade away is another wide receiver, and this is one who he has been amazing so far this year. Like what we all hoped he always would be on Minnesota. It's Stephon Diggs. He's the number 6 wideout in half-point PPR this season. And he has been just a revelation for fantasy owners. I mean, he's been scoring seemingly at will almost with Josh Allen under center. They've been using him like we've all wanted Stephon Diggs to be used. It seems almost like when you don't have Kirk Cousins throwing you the ball, you're a much better wide receiver. But that's coming to an end soon. He has Seattle this week, so he should have a pop week this week. It's Arizona after that. He could be okay in that one, but it's a little bit tougher a matchup. Then it's his bye, and then he has bad matchups basically all the rest of the season after that. So if I'm a Diggs manager, I'm looking to probably hold Diggs through this week because Diggs could have a massive game this week. Really boost his value one last time, and then try and trade him from that point on. See what you can maybe you can trade him for a Calvin Ridley or maybe a Julio Jones because he's been kind of up and down. Maybe you can trade him for Allen Robinson. Target one of these guys who is another top 10 wide receiver, but they've been ailing or they've just kind of had some woes. But they have maybe you could trade him for a Keenan Allen. I'd look into doing that because Diggs, while he's been great, we have also seen him pull the disappearing act a couple times this season because he does still have Josh Allen throwing the football. Josh Allen's not infallible, and there's no one else really on that team to draw opposing coverage away from him. I mean, John Brown's fine, but he's not no one's prioritizing John Brown over Stephon Diggs. So he's going to run into some tough sledding over the back half of the season. And if you're fighting for a playoff spot, or if you're fighting for a bye, or you get into the playoffs, he could be the reason you get bounced in the first round or something. I'd be in the position where I'm trying to trade him to one of my competitors, and let him sink their team like an anchor, because the chances are he's going to do that. Squeeze every last bit of juice you can get out of him this week, and then just move on.
Yeah, I don't know if I would trade for Calvin Ridley specifically, just because of the injury this week, and I think before we talked about this, I don't like his matchups for the rest of the season.
I was just using him as an example because he's in that caliber of players where it's a comparable, because you don't want to sell low on this guy. He's still going to be a decent wide receiver from here on out, but
I would much rather try and get like an Allen Robinson or a Keenan Allen.
Oh, for sure. I was just using them as a way to describe the range of receivers that I'm looking at. Maybe you can get him maybe you can get Tyreek Hill for him because Tyreek Hill's been very up and down, or maybe you can send him for Adam Thielen, maybe Robert Woods or Will Fuller. There's a couple guys that I would be looking to move Diggs for, because I think Diggs is kind of playing over his head right now, and you're going to see him come back to earth over the last couple games of the fantasy season.
Yeah, like I said, I'm all about that, especially Allen just hasn't looked the same since the scorcher of the start of the season that he had. I don't really care for his schedule going forward either.
Chargers, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Denver, New England. That's 12 through 16 for him.
Yeah, like you said, that he is a quarterback I am probably trying to get rid of as well. Try and sell somebody on that. Package something to maybe move for another quarterback. Quarterback is a tough one to sell because people are either overvalued because you're in a super flex, or it's undervalued because you're in a single quarterback league, and people would rather just play the waivers than give you something for a quarterback. So
sure.
Maybe you can put a piece in there with Allen and get something else. But Diggs, I don't want a piece of Buffalo's offense at all, just because they have a rough schedule coming up.
Yeah, it's not great. And then let me jump on over to our starts and money picks here. So last week, Vitaly and I each got one right. So we are both 17 and 32. And we talked about this a little bit before the show. I think Vitaly and I are going to enter into a little bit of a jersey bet here. Time to revive that. We haven't done one of those since the preseason. But seeing as we're both 17 and 32, I think we should set it up as best record at the end of the season wins, and if it's a tie, we just, I don't know, loser.
We can do a playoff. We will extend it into the playoffs, and basically we have to pick the team goes all the way.
That's fair.
Oh, I was gonna say you guys tie. If you guys tie, you guys get me a jersey.
No,
you still owe me a jersey, all right?
You almost have less picks in than Jeff, and Jeff joined the show halfway through the season.
I gotta work.
Yeah, Frankie.
Well, we'll be addressing that next week if you didn't have a bedtime.
But I think we'll jersey bet that. So put that on the board. We are
banging my imaginary gavel. It is recorded.
It is decided.
Yeah, I think for this one I'm gonna make you get me a Tyler Eifert jersey, just so I can finally get one. Maybe a Bengals one too. And that's hot.
The Bengals jerseys are actually pretty sick. I do enjoy them.
But I'll kick it off here as well. I feel like I never kick off the starts and money picks, so I'll take this one away. My starts this week are Deontay Johnson versus Dallas in that juicy matchup. David Montgomery versus Tennessee, because while David Montgomery is boring, he is going to get you about 10 points, just like David Montgomery always does. And then my money picks, Will Fuller versus Jacksonville, 6,800. He should feast versus that defense. He historically does. And they're just a bad team. Fuller's the focal point for this offense. If they score a lot, and I expect them to, it's going to be through Fuller. And then Derek Carr versus the Chargers, 5,700. The Raiders have looked surprisingly decent this season, especially against bad teams. The Chargers are, firmly middle of the road. Herbert slings it. The Raiders are going to have to throw to keep up. I think that Derek Carr could easily exceed his value this week.
Mm-hmm.
So, I will say my first start, as a disclaimer, this was before the Stafford news came out. But if Stafford plays, I am comfortable locking in Marvin Jones in that one slot against Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
We saw what the Packers did to them week 1. Stafford's a good quarterback. Been historically good with Marvin Jones. I mean, he's never been that pop guy, but he's been a good receiver out there.
I'd say, if anything, he is just a pop guy. He is the new Deshaun Jackson.
Well, I mean, not the high floor guys like Watson or.
Oh yeah, his floor is
Watson.
abysmal, but his ceiling is great.
Then David Johnson against Jacksonville. While I think that Fuller is the focal point of that offense, and they are probably going to go up, they're going to be running the football a lot when they go up. So, locking in David Johnson to start number 2.
Real fast, just breaking news for tomorrow's game with the 49ers. Left tackle Trent Williams and wide receivers Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel are considered high-risk close contacts to Kendrick Bourne. So they are all officially out for tomorrow night's game versus Green Bay in addition to Kendrick Bourne. So I guess the 49ers are going to have Jordan Reed and that's it as their wide receivers. As their pass catchers.
Do either of you have a wide receiver I can borrow?
So if you are planning on rostering any of them, plan accordingly. Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel will not be playing.
Things I don't like to hear.
Frankie, back to what you were saying.
I went a little bit high with my money picks this week, but very confident in both of them. Dalvin versus Detroit. I'm not expecting a complete, utter obliteration of Detroit's run defense, but I mean, we saw what Aaron Jones did at the beginning of the season. Dalvin is better than Aaron Jones and has looked really good. So I think that one's a little bit self-explanatory. Melvin Gordon, a little bit of bad luck last week. Atlanta's looked objectively terrible throughout the entire season on defense. I mean, Drew Lock's back out there. Jerry Jeudy and Noah Fant have looked fine as pass catchers. I'm comfortable with it. 5,300. I think that easily clears.
Yeah. Like you said, I like Marvin Jones if Stafford plays, of course. I'm actually going to do mine in reverse because you brought up one of mine. I'm actually going in my money slot. I'm going with David Johnson. 5,600. I love this matchup for him against Jacksonville with a new quarterback. We don't know what they're going to get from him. But
that's right.
This could be a very messy game, and David Johnson gets looks both in the running game, passing game, and DraftKings being a PPR format. I'm about to get a pass-catching running back, so he's a nice, cheap pass-catching running back for you. The other one, I'm going a little more bold. I am also targeting the Dallas-Pittsburgh game. I'm going with Juju Smith-Schuster. Big Ben should be able to get out there and just do as he pleases to this team. And I do think this team's had a little time to kind of figure something out and try and game plan something to get offense to go forward. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but I think with the amount of talent they have, they should be able to drag that team to maybe 10 points.
Nope.
So with that in mind, the Pittsburgh Steelers should need to throw a few times, and over the middle should be basically just free catches. And Juju's been his target's been going up. Deontay's been pulling he takes the third quarter off, pulling LeBron James. He's like, I'll show up in the fourth. like, I think Juju could really smash here, and the only thing I'm down on is his price is still a little bit high. I'd love to see it come down a bit, but I'm comfortable rolling out him for 62.
I am surprised he's still 62.
Yeah, it's like the name just is like there's like they bake numbers into names. They're just like, yep, you're this, boom.
He's had like 2 like decent games this season. They're like, yeah, that's like a 6,200 receiver right there.
Yeah, he should be in like the 5.4s, maybe 5.5s, but either way, I'm still
rolling.
like
5.8 would be a fair price for him against Dallas.
Yeah, but going on from that, I'm going to take Big Ben against Dallas because reasons I just said. Not much to go into that about there, but he should be a simple play for quarterback if you're looking for something for this week. He could have been out there. He could have been out on your waiver wire. He could have got a scoop up if he got missed. And then Evan Ingram against Washington. So not a great matchup because that front line for Washington has looked scary. And Washington, the G-men, the Giants, have not looked good on offense, arguably, but Golden Tate is banged up. So that's a short yardage guy right there. Their running backs are a joke. Wayne Gallman somehow did something in that game, but Evan Ingram was getting a lot of targets, and I think that could happen again because one thing I do believe, even if this is a bad matchup for the Giants, it isn't a rival, an interdivisional game. So division rivals know a lot more about the game plan usually for the other team, and they play them a little bit better. Like as I said before, Patriots in their heyday versus the Dolphins at home, or when they go to the Dolphins or go to the Bills. That was a tough game regardless of how those teams look.
Sure.
So I'm willing to take him in there as a tight end just because there's not a lot of great options out there, especially if Hawk's a little nicked up and there's no Stafford. Like that tight end market's just getting drier and drier. So
yeah, sadly, just gives more credence towards doing the high price tight end thing, but it's just so hard to pull the trigger on them in the other rounds. But well, that'll do it for our picks this week. Jeff was sadly unable to submit picks, but we will keep tracking those and let you guys know how those go on our trade show next week. Join us tomorrow as we bring you guys the countdown show. Frank, are you going to be here for the countdown show tomorrow, or is it next week?
It should be next week.
Okay. So join me and Vitaly tomorrow as we bring you guys the countdown show, walk you guys through all of the weekend games and our thoughts on them. And for anyone who has players going in the Thursday night game, good luck and hopefully they don't get COVID.
Are we not doing a beer check?
Oh, that's right, beer check.
I mean, I think it's you because
I'm not that far in.
I'm only through one.
I haven't sipped two, so.
I've taken a sip of two, so I guess it is me.
Tight race.
I was.
How appropriate.
I was going slow today, No, I am going to. I've used my 5 minutes of fame to touch on the political before. I am going to just touch on it again today because while I don't typically like to make political statements on a platform such as this, it feels appropriate with the turmoil we're going through. Where it's like, can people stop trying to and by people I mean you've seen them if you're on Twitter. The people who they want the votes to stop counting if they aren't for them, but keep counting if they are. Like, can we just let the democratic process sort itself out? Like, when did we become Russia? Like, let's all calm the hell down for a moment. Please, stop trying to barge into polls and stop them from counting votes. Stop trying to impede the voting process. Like, it should be a simple thing. Americans get to vote. It is our most basic right as citizens. If you legally cast your vote, that vote should count. Whether it's absentee, mail-in, curbside, went to the polls, I don't care. If your state said this is a legal way to cast your vote, that vote counts. Let's all stop slowing the process down. I don't care who your candidate is, left, right, blue, green, red, whatever. Let's all just take a big step back, let them finish the fucking voting, and then, if your candidate didn't win, get angry about it on Facebook or Twitter or whatever your chosen social media platform is afterwards, like people have always done, or yell about it on the streets, whatever it is. You obviously, half the people vote for the wrong guy. Not everyone can win. That's just life. It doesn't matter if it's sports or politics. Not everyone can win. Some people are going to back the person that does not win. And you know what? Once they don't win, fine, go ahead, get angry about it. That's your right as well if you voted. But let the process sort itself out. Like, impeding the process just makes us look like jackasses to the rest of the world. Everyone's just sitting there like, what's going on in America? Why are they being so weird? Like, we're the only ones that are doing this. Why are we having such a big problem with democracy all of a sudden? I don't know. It's frustrating seeing it all on the news and social media, just like people trying to stop the vote from happening. Like, how would you feel if that's your vote that people are trying to stop? What if you're in that group? Like, just let it go through, guys. I don't know. I think that's my take for today. I think it should be incredibly simple, but for some reason isn't.
Eloquently said. I hope all of you voted.
Yes. But yes, as I said, we will see you all tomorrow for our countdown show, and best of luck with that Thursday game. Hopefully no new players get COVID.